Recording in progress.
Hello. Good afternoon and welcome to the Penn State Weekly Football Press Conference. We'll start with an opening statement from Coach, and then we will go to our pre-approved list of media members, and we'll start with Rich Scarcella. Coach?
So, first of all, like always, appreciate you guys being here and covering Penn State football. Brief summary of the Purdue game. Some of this I've already covered, so I'll keep it brief. But turnover battle on paper, it says even, but obviously one of those turnovers going for a pick six changes that. Although we did score points off of our defense's turnover as well. Penalties, we were able to win that battle, which again, being on the road and dealing with that noise in an opening game, I think is a positive. Drive start battle, we won that. The sack battle, we won that. Explosive plays, we did not. So got to improve in those areas. Players of the game on offense, Olu Fashanu and Kevon Lee. Defensively, Joey Porter, and special teams, Barney Amore. And then the scout team or developmental squad players of the week were Mason Stahl and Vega Ione. On offense, and on defense, Cody Romano and Andrew Sharga. And then on special teams, Cody Romano. Obviously cool that Sean Clifford was the co-offensive player of the week in the Big Ten. Defensively, Joey Porter was a national player of the week in the Bednarik Award, but he didn't get any Big Ten love for whatever reason. I thought we played hard. When you watch the game, I thought we played hard against a good team. I think that team's going to give a lot of people problems this year. Same team last year that beat number 2 Iowa and number 5 Michigan State. So they've been in big games before. The thing that really jumped out to me in that game is we won situational football, the things that we work on all the time. Offense won a coming out, a sudden change, a 2-minute at the end of the half, and a 2-minute at the end of the game. Defensively, we won a 2-minute at the end of the half and at the end of the game, and a 4-minute to win the game. So I thought that was a big positive for us. Opportunities for growth, obviously too many drop balls. I think the game could have been completely different if we caught more balls, and that's on offense and defense. And then we got to be more explosive. There's no doubt about it. We got to be more explosive on offense. So, I'm pleased overall. Found a way to get a tough, gritty win on the road. And, we were able to come in, practice on Friday, meet on Friday, get those things cleaned up. The players had off on Saturday, and then we went back to our normal work week on Sunday. Not completely normal because obviously we didn't have any corrections to make. Talking about Ohio, 6-game series with these guys. Last time we played them was a loss in 2012. Tim Albin is the head coach. I don't really know Tim or this staff very well. Obviously, he's got tremendous resume and history there. 12 returning starters from last year. Thought they went out and played really well in game 1 and did some really good things. So that'll be a challenge. When you talk about their offense, Scott Isferding, is the offensive coordinator. Curtis Rourke, their quarterback, stands out as also a captain for them. They're a spread option attack offensively. Obviously, they kind of promoted from within and stayed in-house. So a lot of things that they did last year are still consistent this year. But Curtis Rourke, the quarterback, we're impressed with. Big, strong kid, high completion percentage. The wide receiver, James Bostic, and then the running back who we're familiar with is a local kid from Maryland, Bangura. We've been impressed with him. And then on defense, Spence Nowinski. They actually hired away from Miami, Ohio. established defensive coordinator, be able to watch him in game one and then be able to go back and watch what they did at Miami of Ohio, I think was important. Obviously, first games are challenging. Second games can still be challenging because you still don't have a whole lot of data to study. Been impressed with their will linebacker, number 32, Bryce Houston. Defensive tackle, number 55, Rodney Matthews, and then strong safety, number 11, Tariq Drake, are guys that jump out. And then the last thing on special teams, Nate Faunis is their special teams coordinator. And they got 4 starters returning on special teams. The punter punted last year, who's an Australian young man we didn't see in the last game. I'm not sure if he'll be back this week or not. But I thought their kicker, who's a freshman, did a really good job with his op times, and he was 2 for 2. So tremendous challenge. Obviously, today's practice will be important. I loved how our guys handled, both Friday's practice and Sunday's practice. We're a little bit ahead because of that. But, we mainly at the end of the day, we got to get better this week. And that's in every area: offense, defense, special teams, and also individually. If we do that each week as the season progresses, I think we'll like where we're at.
We'll start with Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, and then we'll go to Ben Jones.
Good afternoon, James. How are you today?
Good, Rich. How are you, buddy?
I'm okay, thank you. James, after watching film, how would you evaluate the performance of your offensive line?
Yeah, I thought the majority of our offensive linemen played well. We had, I think, 1 penalty on the offensive line and 1 sack, so we got to clean that up. Watching the tape, we had a chance for a few more explosive runs. We had to make that 1 free hitter miss, and we weren't able to do that. But we just got to continue to progress. But 1 sack in the game on the road, first game in the Big Ten. I think we took a step, but there's still work that needs to be done.
Ben Jones, statecollege.com, then Corey Geiger.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Hey, Ben. Good, man. You?
Good. I've never gone this early before. It feels vaguely stressful. Joey Porter Jr., normally when you talk about corners, they say that the guys that you don't hear about are the guys that are maybe doing their job the best. It seemed like he got targeted a lot, and certainly maybe historic, the penalties and things like that led to that. But how do you kind of balance a guy who's getting targeted a lot, but at the same time, a guy who is having, apparently a lot of success in those moments?
Yeah, obviously it's unusual to have a guy that's as highly thought of as Joey, and I don't know if they necessarily targeted him, but they didn't avoid him. And a lot of times people will just go in a different direction. But I just think they were just going to run their offense and do what they do, and where the defense or the quarterback's progression took them, they were going to go. And I think, this guy does as good of a job as anybody in terms of throwing the ball. Both the head coach as the coordinator and the quarterback. They do a really good job at it, and Joey kept getting tested, and as the game went on, really played well. And I think his confidence continues to grow, and obviously it's a great way for him to start the season, not just with the PBUs, but also the tackles. And the next step really for him and for us, just like I talked about in the opening, comment, is about, drop balls. And that's defensively and offensively, because that game would have been very different with a couple of those opportunities turning into interceptions and possibly pick sixes for us that I think we're capable of doing. So, great way for him to start the year. We're going to have to continue to build on it. Because I think that's the key, right? Is the elite teams and the elite players. It's about consistency.
Corey Geiger, DK Pittsburgh Sports, then John McGonigal.
I do apologize about this. I'm usually later, so sometimes I don't always ask about just the team. I wanted to ask you about college football playoff expansion, James. What do you think the benefits of that could be, and how might that change football once that comes into play? Are there any negatives at all, too?
Yeah, in season, I haven't really spent a whole lot of time on this, and this obviously came out in season. But obviously the playoff model has obviously changed college football. It really, really has. And I would say that's really starting with the BCS and now our current model. But I do think if you look at, most of the sports in college football or sports in general, more opportunities for more teams to get in without going too far, I think is important. There's obviously always the discussion about teams, maybe that aren't Power 5, schools that had great years but are left out, or a situation like us where we won the Big Ten championship, arguably top 2 conferences, if not the best conference in all of college football, and be left out. I think it helps resolve and solve some of those issues. We obviously, in our sport, we also have to look at the length of the season, from a academic calendar perspective, but also just from a physicality perspective. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But I think in general, I think it's a positive, and I think it's something that was needed. I'm also a believer that I don't think the answer, not just in this, but in everything, I don't think the answer is always more is better. We got to find the sweet spot for college football, for the fans, and most importantly for the student athletes.
John McGonigal, Penn Live, and then we'll go to Neil Rudell.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, John. How are you?
Good. So Theo Johnson, he traveled, but he didn't suit up. Was there a chance he'd play against Purdue, and how is he holding up ahead of Ohio?
Yeah, we were hoping that we may have him available in that Purdue game. That's not our call, but we were hopeful. Travel him to see if there was a chance of that, and we'll kind of go from there. But obviously, everybody knows how much of a big time player he is, and how much respect that we have for him, both on and off the field. So hopefully we're able to get him back sooner rather than later. Hopefully that's this week. It did, we had to kind of scramble there because we had a big part of our game plan was 12 personnel and 13 personnel. And, we had to scramble. The positive is it allowed us to get Effner some more reps rather than just at tackle. If you watch the tape closely, he actually played like an extra tight end in some sets for us, which also allowed us to get him a little bit more playing time, which he's earned.
Neil Rudell, Altoona Mirror, and then Mark Wigenrich.
Hey, James. Curious if
Hi, Neil.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Please,
Hi.
Hey, I was wondering if you could talk about Dan Rocco's contribution to the staff and his son as well, and just the Rocco family's link to Penn State football, maybe how much you know Frank as well.
Yeah, it's obviously, really cool. You talk about, the dad, I guess it's the grandfather, depending on who you're calling the dad, but the grandfather, the dad, the son, the brother, obviously long history, with Penn State football. Obviously, very aware of all those things. And I think you guys have seen kind of with our staff, when we've been able to connect, from a historical perspective, with some of the staff that we've been able to bring back, whether it's the Roccos or whether it's the Connors or whether it's the Zemitises. I think that's been important for us, Terry Smith, to help bridge that gap, a place with unbelievable tradition and history. And for our players to be able to learn from these guys' experiences and for me, to be able to hear some of these things in the past and how things were done and why, it's been really cool. So, I've known the Rocco family for a long time, obviously, getting here, to Penn State and getting to know the grandfather, well. I to be honest, I mess it up sometimes. I call Danny Frank and call David Danny sometimes. So in general, it helps me if I just say coach, and then whoever turns around, I make eye contact with the guy I'm talking about. But they've been great. Obviously when you're able to get that experience, that head coach experience, that NFL experience, that Penn State experience, there's tremendous value in that. And then what really helped us a little bit, with David, is him and Ty Howell worked together as well. So it allowed me to, really kind of have an understanding. And I got a ton of respect for Ty Howell, who's another guy I didn't mention when we talk about all the lettermen we've brought back, Tyrone as well. Ty Howell worked with David. So I thought that was helpful too. So it's been good.
Mark Wogenrich, all Penn State, and then we'll go to Mike Gross.
Hi, James.
How you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
There's a newly announced today NIL Collective that was started by former football players and will benefit Penn State's football program exclusively, was what it says. What kind of impact could that have for your team?
Well, obviously, first of all, we appreciate, all the people, whether they're alumni or fans or donors, with all of the, NIL opportunities and groups that are out there. Obviously, this one specifically, wanted to work, with football. The other groups are doing that as well. But this is something that we want to make sure those groups are working together, doing what's best for Penn State and Penn State athletics as a whole. But obviously certain people are going to have a connection with certain sports that they're more passionate about. So we appreciate what they're doing. Obviously there's a lot of passion and hard work that's going to go into it. And obviously from a name recognition, from being very supportive with us, not only in this area, but really since we've been back, they've been great. And we look forward to, any opportunities that they can present to our student athletes and our program. We are appreciative of, we really are. I also want to say we got a ton of respect and appreciation for Success with Honor and what they're doing. And I think Pat has really kind of come in, and I think has worked really well with these groups outside of the athletic department and making sure everybody's on the same page and we're all pulling the rope in the same direction.
Last question on the phone line will be Mike Gross, Lancaster Newspapers.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you, man?
I'm good, thanks. You've talked a lot about developing depth. You've obviously played a lot of people last week. Quarterback is a unique situation. So how likely is it that you would give a backup quarterback a series, not in a mop-up situation, but in a real live competitive game situation over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, we've had discussions about that. Obviously, we want to make sure that we have depth throughout our entire program at every position. Obviously, I think the last 2 years that had a major factor in how our seasons went. So being very strategic and working hard to find ways to get guys on the field and gain that experience, not only in practice and our developmental scrimmages that we just had this past Sunday, but also out there in Beaver Stadium. I think in theory, I think what we've tried to do is hopefully play in a way in some games that allows you to get guys on the field. But it always doesn't play out that way. So being strategic, the best we can, to put all of our players at every position, in position to gain that valuable game experience. So it's something we're looking at. We'll see how it plays out.
We'll open up questions here in the room. Raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. How would you evaluate, you mentioned that winning the sack battle. How would you evaluate your defensive ends pass rushing, specifically Adisa coming off the injury and Chop in his debut?
Yeah, I thought, again, when the game got there to the end and the quarterback had to hold on to the ball, we were able to get home and make some plays. But when you look at this team, we knew going into it that batted down balls were going to be as significant maybe as what sacks normally are, based on how quickly the ball comes out of the quarterback's hands. So I thought that was something that we really kind of emphasized and were focused on. But overall good. Obviously, at the end of the day, you'd like more tackles for loss and you'd like more sacks. But again, based on who you play, what their scheme is like, you play a team like Wisconsin who's going to run the ball 80% of the time and then hard play action pass and be in manageable third down situations. They typically aren't going to give up a bunch of sacks. You play a team like Purdue where the ball's coming out very quickly, whether it's screens, quick game, RPOs, things like that. It's going to impact it. But at the end of the day, we want to get people off schedule, and the way you do that is with tackles for loss and sacks.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. After looking at film this weekend, how would you describe the secondary's performance? Obviously, Joey Porter Jr. had a good game, but how would you describe how the other guys played?
Yeah, I think really good. When you talk about, I think we actually had it different. The number of pass breakups that we had, a lot of times when you're in the away stadium, the way they chart it is different than you. And it's not like you can call back and make your argument and they really want to have it, the following week. But I think if I'm correct, I'm trying to check my notes here. I think we had us down for 14 pass breakups is the way 16. Thank you. The way we had it graded. So, we thought we played really well against a team that is going to test you and your passing game. They're going to test you. So I thought under the circumstances played well. The area obviously that I've mentioned already, that we gotta be better at is when we have an opportunity for a turnover, for an interception. We got to capitalize on that. Very similar to when we have an opportunity for a sack. We got to capitalize on them as well. But taking all that into consideration, there's room for improvement.
James, the two defensive positions that we spent a lot of time asking you in preseason about were middle linebacker and safety. Keaton got the start, Tyler got the start, but there were others involved. Would you be able to kind of share your evaluation through one game on those two spots and the plan moving forward?
Yeah, so I think our plan, and we haven't talked about it for this week yet, but, Abdul Carter, we were expecting him to play a decent amount in that game. And it was really dependent on how he was going to play. With it being his first game, we didn't want to have a strict rotation. But obviously I think he ended up playing 2 plays, one on special teams and one on defense. Our plan was for much more than that. So this week, I'd like to get him a ton of reps, both on special teams and on defense. And then obviously this game will give us a better feel of how that rotation will go moving forward. I think the plan is probably still the same with Elston and Kobe to rotate that by series, whether it's 1-to-1 or 2-to-2. And then at the other outside linebacker spot, it's really different because that position typically gets subbed out by going nickel. So the rotation wouldn't be the same there. Obviously, DeLuca was able to go in and get some reps, but we really see that Sutherland and nickel being the main rotation, with DeLuca being able to get some time. We'd like to see him be able to get some time this week as well. We'll see how that plays out. And then the other guy, obviously when Abdul, gets the targeting penalty, Jamari Budden which that really wasn't part of the plan. But it just, was an example. As we all know, things don't always go exactly how they planned. And he went in there and functioned within the defense, and we were able to get, Curtis a little bit of a blow. So that was good. Hopefully, he can build on that and gain some confidence and go from there.
Hey, James. Oh, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, okay.
Keaton got the start. I'm just curious, moving forward, what you saw from position game one.
Yeah, again, we haven't had this discussion. We haven't even had a practice this week yet. So we haven't made any changes and things like that. But like we've talked about in the past, we've got a lot of confidence in Jalen Reed, got a lot of confidence in Zachy Wheatley. Obviously, Zachy continues to make plays, whether it was in the spring, whether it was in camp when he led us in turnovers. And then he, gets in the game, on Saturday, and the ball carrier's got the ball in the inside arm, which is something that we teach to do the opposite of. Always have the ball towards the sideline for that very reason. But the ball was there, and Zachy has the ability to get his hands on the ball, whether it's interceptions or a critical fumble that we were able to capitalize on, both Joey and then our offense. So, no changes right now to announce to you, but obviously all those guys will play.
Hey, James. On that turnover in the second half, I noticed that Pat Kraft was on the sideline celebrating with the guys. I think it was Joey Porter. How does it feel to have a guy like that in your guys' corner during the game like that?
Yeah, he's got a reputation. So he's told me this, and it had a reputation like he needs like a get back coach. He is into it. There's no doubt about it. Which is cool. He's in the locker room with us after the game and on the sideline, but he's got a reputation. Like he almost wants to be out there, I think. Which I think for our team, and the energy, it's appreciated, it's welcomed. And, again, I'd rather that be the problem.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You mentioned last week kind of building up that receiver depth. Omari Evans didn't play much, but he got in against Purdue. Where's he at developmental wise, and what have you seen from him, early in camp and this start of the season?
Yeah, Omari, as well as Harrison Wallace. Harrison ended up playing a bunch in the game. Omari's a guy that can flat out run. I mean, can run. But is still kind of growing and figuring it out. So Omari, the way we had it set up, I think he was a tap guy for Tinsley. So he's not a rotational guy right now, but he's a tap guy. We'll see how that plays out. We got a bunch of guys each week competing for that backup spot. But he has shown flashes of some really good stuff. Like a lot of players, whether it's in football or in basketball, he's got to learn to play fast without the ball in his hand to create that separation and the timing that we need. But he's shown some really, really good flashes in practice and even in the game that we need to build on.
T. Frank, go ahead.
Hey, James, how you doing?
Hey, T.
Your defensive front seven, seems like there's a lot going on there from a schematic standpoint. So how did they handle that from a mental standpoint of execution, and then from a physical standpoint of being able to execute those assignments, actually getting to where they're supposed to be?
Yeah, I think what we all hope for, right, is from game 1 to 2 that you make the biggest jump. And specifically on the defensive side of the ball, where we have some new wrinkles and some subtle tweaks to the scheme. But I think that's where we can really take a next step, because we did have some missed assignments at critical times, in the game that we got to get cleaned up. And that's what Friday was for, and that's what Sunday was for. But I think you'll see those guys continuing to progress. And again, giving credit to Purdue, I think they do some good things that challenge you as well. But I was pleased with those guys. We got to continue to grow, continue to gain experience. That's where getting Kobe, a ton of reps, getting Elsdon a ton of reps, getting Abdul Carter a ton of reps, guys that haven't played a whole lot of football at this level in the Big Ten. We got to get them caught up and as confident as quickly as we possibly can, and then being coordinated with the front. Although in the front, we got a number of guys that have played a lot of football for us, so we just got to build on that. Obviously, getting guys like Zane Durant, getting them a bunch of reps, and Chop Robinson a bunch of reps, and Jordan Vandenberg, the guys that are in that group that haven't played as much football, as maybe some of the other guys. Denai would fall into that category. And then it just made me think, I thought one of my favorite plays in the game, and to see a guy who's kind of been working and waiting for his opportunity, was the Amin Vanover retrace. Big tackle, maybe a touchdown saving tackle, like 20 yards down the field. His catapult numbers were really good in terms of how fast he was running, and played really hard. So I'm proud of him. I want to continue to build on that with him, and I know our defense coaches do too.
Hey, James.
How we doing?
Two quick ones. Have you made a decision this week whether Drew will be Sean's backup for Ohio? And how did you think PJ Mustipher did first game back after a significant injury? I know you touched on him being a veteran. How do you think he did?
Yeah, again, like similar answer, and I know this is not what you guys want, but a similar answer that I've given other people. We haven't really made any decisions. We had basically a Friday corrections jog through practice, and then kind of a bonus one on Sunday, which we were able to do a little bit more, but we're only in helmets. Tuesday and Wednesdays are our work day, where we get the best evaluation of kind of where we're at, and that determines, maybe some moves that we may or may not make. But like I mentioned to you before, it's a competition week in and week out. But I don't have that answer for you right now. When you ask about PJ, PJ's just doing everything right on the field, off the field, from a leadership standpoint. He had a great message to the guys on Friday after the game about being present and being locked in and focused here. And by doing that, it will take care of all your objectives and goals down the road. He's been great. He's been great. I would say that I don't know if last week's game was necessarily PJ's type of game, but I thought he played well and put us in position to win.
Hey, James, you guys, you said this is one of the best tight end groups that you've had since you've been at Penn State, and both Brenton Strange and Tyler Warren made some big plays against Purdue. What more going forward do you want to see from that group, and how do you try to make them more consistent contributors in the pass game?
Yeah, some of the things that we already talked about. I mean, consistently catching the ball. We had one drop that I can remember at the tight end position, and then being physical, having a physical presence in the run game and finishing blocks. Because when we talk about the run game, that's not just the O-line, it's the O-line and tight ends together, really the whole unit, but specifically at the point of attack, you're talking about the O-line, tight end. So I think they can be better in that area as well. But I've been pleased with the group. I think they have the ability to be big time impact players for us. But that's probably what I would say to you is just, being difference makers for us in the run game. Obviously, we saw what they can do in the pass game. I thought Brenton Strange's touchdown at 65 yards, obviously was a huge play in the game just before the half, and a combination of grit and toughness and breaking tackles, and then being able to score, from that far out. The thing I thought was so amazing is how he was able to run 65 yards and the actual play took like 4 minutes. I think he wanted to just kind of magnify that moment and be on the camera as long as possible. But at the end of the day, nobody called him and he scored.
Last question to Daniel.
Hey, James, over here. You've been very high on this freshman class and signing day. I think traveled 13 guys there and 7 of them played. A couple days later, how do you feel like they acquitted themselves in that kind of environment? And how do you see this moving forward with getting more of those guys involved?
Yeah, I think I'll have a better idea after this week. It's always hard when you're trying to compare and contrast, whether it's how many guys you played or whether it is statistics or whatever it may be early in the season when people's early season schedules are very different. It kind of skews. So the fact that we were able to play 7 freshmen on the road against a good Big Ten team, I think is a positive. And as we all know in college football, those first games of the year could look very different, probably more so now than ever, the way people are doing scheduling. So good first step. We need to take the next step this week, and even situations like Abdul, hopefully it looks very dramatic after the game when we're talking about the number of reps that he was able to play.